call it Star Trek, but this was a star wobble up to the stage. Thank you all for being with us. We could use more of you. I see some empty seats. They should set the announcement out that we are on stage and living long and prospering as you all are. And we have a great deal to thank to all of you, because next year is 2026, exactly 60 years since Star Trek was born, back in 1966. And do I see any bald heads or gray hair? Because it's those of you that were around then that helped us make that long journey. 60 years of Star Trek. And to those of you who have a lush head of hair and were born in the 21st century, thank you for knowing your history and joining the team and making Star Trek live long and prosper. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so with that word of appreciation to all of you, those of you around who survived, and when I see empty seats, I also see the people who occupied them. Empty seats, but people who contributed to this incredible phenomenon. And some of them are people like Gene Roddenberry, who created the show, whose vision it was, whose philosophy was IDIC, I-D-I-C, infinite diversity in infinite combination. And that's all of you. And those empty seats represents people who preceded you, who created this phenomenon called Live Long and Prosper Star Trek. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Takei, you mentioned Gene Roddenberry's, vision. What made it so timeless, and how, ahead of its time was this whole idea of what we see 60 years later? It's incredible.
Oh, it's very credible. There they are, alive and living, and Star Trek is living long and prospering. So don't say it's incredible. We are very alive, and I may be hobbling, but my spirit is still there, and the gratitude for those in us. And I think of Leonard Nimoy, great actor, but also a wonderful friend. He was the one that created this gesture of Vulcan. We were filming, and on the script said there was a team of alien beings coming on board, and Leonard or Spock is out there to greet them with his hand extended, welcoming handshake. But Leonard said, no, this is a very aggressive move to go forward with your hand like this. They don't know us and we don't know them. They don't know our culture, and they may be startled by this being coming across, extending your hand. It should be something much more pacific, peaceful, and non-aggressive. And he said, this gesture It's an open hand showing I have no weaponry. And so he suggested, what about this gesture? The director said, fantastic, that's wonderful. That was Leonard Nimoy who offered this idea. And I think that's a wonderful idea. And it's become a part of Star Trek. And I've incorporated this gesture as my welcoming gesture at all these Star Trek conventions.
Do you remember the exact moment you realized Star Trek had become something bigger than just a TV show?
Well, because I like to think I'm a visionary, when we were filming the pilot film, and Jimmy Doon, who played Scotty, yes, let's give him a hand. But I'm not giving a hand to the fact that he was a chain smoker. He needed a smoke, and he didn't want to be off the sound stage all by himself. So he said, George, come on out and chat with me while I have a smoke. So I went outside with him, and Jimmy asked me, what do you think is going to happen with this pilot film? Do you think it will sell? And I said, oh, I smell quality about this show. Gene Roddenberry has a great philosophy, and I can see the other actors in this cast are very fine actors. They're bringing their own individuality, and I've seen a couple of scripts, and they are substantial, they have meaning, they have great dramatic scenes, action, suspense, and so I have a feeling this show is going to be a great hit. We haven't even sold yet, but I said it's going to be a hit. It's going to live long and prosper, and guess what? It has.
So Sulu became a symbol of optimism, intellect, and courage, and amongst more. How did you make that role your own to ensure he stood out amongst the iconic crew?
Thank you for my strength seems to be leading me, and yeah, they're making these water bombs tighter and harder. Thank you very much. What was the question?
How did you make the role of Sulu your own and ensure he stood out amongst such an iconic crew?
Well, the acronym Live Long and Prosper meant we're going to be depicting the future civilization, diversity, people of different histories, different backgrounds, different viewpoints, different talents, and so I said, I'm Asian American, and I'm part of the diversity. That's going to be an important part of what this show is about, and that's what the future is going to be about. People of different backgrounds, different values, different ages, and looking around, you see that diversity here. And so I'm adding that diversity. And I said, I'm an American of Japanese ancestry. And I lived through a chapter of American history where America made a dreadful mistake. Pearl Harbor was bombed by Japan. My grandparents came to this country, and they were farming in the Sacramento Delta in California. And my mother was born, and She married my father, who came from Japan. His mother passed, and my grandfather, his father, decided he wanted to start life anew. So he came to San Francisco with his two boys, my father being the younger one. And my father was raised and educated in San Francisco. And he married my mother from Sacramento. And I was the firstborn. And then next, my brother Henry was born. And then my sister Nancy was born. But when my sister was a baby, I was 5 years old. This country couldn't tell the difference between Japanese Americans and Japan that bombed Pearl Harbor. And President Franklin D. Roosevelt was stampeded by hysteria that swept through the country. And he ordered all Japanese Americans on the West Coast should be rounded up and put in prison camps. And that was an illegal act because we have a system called due process. When people are rounded up, they have a right to know why we're rounded up. The only reason that they had to categorize us was they thought we were enemy aliens. That was crazy. We're three-generation Americans. We're not the enemy, and we were aliens. We were born American. And yet, the country went hysterical, and that affected the president as well. And we were put in these barbed wire prison camps, sentry towers, machine guns pointed at us, half a dozen tanks patrolling the perimeter. There were 10 of these camps in some of the most God-forsaken places. We were imprisoned in the swamps of Arkansas. Others were imprisoned on the blistering hot desert of Arizona, New Mexico, or the high plains, windswept, cold, bitterly cold of Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, for no reason than this made-up fiction that we were enemy aliens. There were no charges, so therefore no trial, just simple imprisonment. And soldiers came to our homes, banged on the front door, pointed bayonets at us, at my father. And that shocked me when they pointed that bayonet at my father. We were frozen with terror, but we were ordered about like that and imprisoned for the duration of the war. And then they decided we're no longer a threat. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. And we know that America can go crazy. And that's why I wrote the books that I had written. The newest one I have now is called It Rhymes with Takei. Others were, thank you very much, you recommend that. That's the newest one, came out last month. But previously I had a book titled I Lost Freedom, or They Called Us Enemy, or To the Stars, in which I talked about my Star Trek adventures with my colleagues. But I wanted America to know that history because there's an important lesson in that. And clearly, we have not learned the lesson because we're doing all over again. You know, federal militia coming into our states First was Los Angeles, then Chicago and Portland, and now they're talking about San Francisco. The same thing that happened to us, for which President Ronald Reagan in 1988 apologized, saying it was a grievous mistake, and they paid a $20,000 reparations to those who were alive at that time, in 1988. I got my $20,000 as a child who lived through that. But the ones that suffered the most were people like my father and people of his generation who had already passed, and the law said you had to be a living survivor. My father never knew that the president would apologize. So we need to apologize to all the people that are being subjected to this aggressive force by a current American, I call him not a president, but a Klingon in the White House. With all of you who applauded, we know that you understand what's happening now happened back in 1942 to us. We know, and enough Americans know that, to know that what's happening today is unconstitutional. At least the soldiers that rounded us up were armed and in uniform, but they didn't have masks. Today, they, I guess, are showing that they are ashamed of themselves because they're masked, but they're that much more threatening. We Americans know, and we are ultimately going to win in this conflict.
Who are some of your heroes or role models, growing up? The people that maybe inspired your sense of creativity, the storytelling, and even justice?
Well, the person that really inspired me the most was my father. He went through that hell, having taken everything that he and my mother worked to build up, a two-bedroom home on Garden Street in Los Angeles. He had his business destroyed, and so he is my biggest hero. And after the war, he's the one that taught me about our democracy. And he often quoted to me President Abraham Lincoln, who in the Gettysburg Address said, "Ours is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people." But, he said, the people are citizens, and with that, with the rights of the people, by the people, for the people, comes responsibility. And there were people that resisted Roosevelt's imprisonment, but he said, people are fallible human beings. And he said he admired President Roosevelt during the Depression, when the country was in a devastating economic depression. But Roosevelt knew how to stir the spirit and the determination of the people. He said to them, "There's nothing to fear but fear itself." And he did galvanize the people and brought the economy up. But he was also, as well as being a great president, he was a fallible human being. And when Pearl Harbor was bombed, he got swept up in the same hysteria, because he was a fallible human being. And he said, our country is made up of great people, but also fallible people who make mistakes. And he told it, this was when I was a teenager, and I was having after dinner conversations, and he said, I want you, all my children, to know that lesson of American history, to participate in democracy, speak up when you see something is wrong, and actively participate in the process. So I want my children to, at school, to volunteer for charitable causes, join all the clubs, and participate in student activities. And so I became a volunteer for the Junior Red Cross. I volunteered in various other charitable causes, and I was voted chairman of the Junior Red Cross. Then I was voted student body president, and so I became actively involved. And I'm passing on to you the lesson that my father taught to me. We, in a democracy, a people's democracy, people have responsibility to keep it what it should be. A nation of laws, a nation of people who take on the responsibility for those laws. We have laws called due process. When people are arrested, they have to have a charge for them, not just being rounded up. And if they come up with a charge, the people have the right to challenge those charges in a court of law, a trial. And then, if they come up with evidence of wrongdoing, then you're free. If you are responsible, then you're punished. And so I became active in the political arena. I volunteered for the first president I volunteered for was Adlai Stevenson. Some of you may not, most of you may not remember that name, but he was a great governor of the state of Illinois and a fantastic speaker. And of course, he didn't get the nomination that year. Young, bright, shining politician from Massachusetts, a senator named John Kennedy, won, became the President of the United States. And that's the way it's supposed to go. And I have a tendency to ramble. I forgot the question. Maybe I answered it.
You're not rambling at all. We're all here. Our ears are glued to you. It's okay. You spoke about your father being, your role model growing up. Where did this creativity come from? And did someone kind of help push you more into the creativity bound to encourage you more?
You need me to be an actor?
Yes.
Well, actually, he wanted me to be an architect. And so, like a good son, I began my college career as an architecture student at UC Berkeley. And it was interesting. I liked architecture, but my real passion, which I kept to myself, was acting, theater. And finally, that passion got stronger and hotter. And I said to my father, I want to go to New York and study at the Actors Studio. And he said, well, the Actors Studio is a respected acting school. People like Marlon Brando have come from there. But he said, what was it that he said? When you finish at the actor studio, they won't give you a diploma that says you're an educated person. It'll just say you're a good actor, or you're a lousy actor, and encourage you to quit. Just say, give you, your acting training. He said, if you must study acting, and your mother and I want you to have a legitimate academic degree. So, right here in town in Los Angeles, at UCLA, they have a fine theater arts department. And when you finish, they will give you a diploma, a bachelor's degree. And so, if you do that, we will subsidize you. If you go to New York, you go to New York all on your own. I was a practical kid. I went with the subsidy. And I'm glad I did, because it was a fantastic experience. I got the Best Supporting Actor Award 2 years in a row at UCLA. And then they just gave me the degree and said, you go on. Not giving the other guys enough competition. And I wound up with my first role in a movie version of a hit bestseller novel, Ice Palace, starring Richard Burton, of all people. He became my idol. And then I saw Errol Flynn in The Adventures of Robin Hood, and I loved Errol Flynn. In fact, when that script had me, initially in the scripts had me brandishing a samurai sword, and I said, yes, I'm Japanese American, and samurais are Japanese warriors, but I'm a Japanese American, and I saw Errol Flynn as Robin Hood, and I was swept away by that. I love fencing, so why don't we put a fencing foil in George's hands? I said, and the director said, great idea, and I went to town with it, had a great time, took my shirt off, got all sweaty, and that is the episode that is my favorite from the television series.
Well, we are out of time, but we're so grateful for having Mr. George and I today. Say a whole story with us. Thank you so much, Mr. Takei.
Let me give you this lesson. He said,
I did real quick, I can fix myself.
Yes, sir. The EI is what people have trouble with. In Spanish, the vowels are just like in Spanish. You puede hablar español también. E is pronounced E, and I is pronounced E. Takei. And when you say pronounce it Takei, there is a Japanese word pronounced Takei. And you may not know that Takei means expensive. So it's not the usual fee, but you'll have to pay half your fee for mispronouncing it.